hold on to your seats, because this week's Last Week Tonight dives deep into media, mergers, and the messy search for truth in American journalism. And trust me, you're about to hear some things that will make you double. Check the next news headline you see. John Oliver Season 12 Episode 26 comes out swinging, blending razor, sharp analysis, furious fact-checking, and the kind of savage one-liners that have made the show a must-watch for anyone who wants to keep up with the news and laugh at the absurdity of it all. The episode explodes out of the gate with John acknowledging a turbulent week, the government shutdown still raging, Peru ousting their president, and stunning news out of Gaza, White House brokered ceasefire deal. As footage rolls of families returning home and hostages expected to be released, there's a rare moment of celebration for good news. But John throws cold water on any easy optimism, reminding viewers that, while the ceasefire is promising, the situation in Gaza is still miles away from a lasting peace. Trump and Republican allies are already declaring victory, even going so far as to introduce a congressional resolution to give Trump the Nobel Peace Prize, something Oliver roasts mercilessly, highlighting how little Congress actually has to do with Nobel Prizes and riffing that they're chosen by a committee of Norwegian elves, trolls, and mythological river monsters. But the uplifting intro is just the warm-up. The meat of this week's episode is a blistering investigation into CBS News, and specifically how its future is being radically reshaped by corporate mergers, big money, and a new editorial boss with a reputation for controversy, Bari Weiss. After the CBS brand and its legacy of trusted journalism are invoked, Edward R. Murrow, Walter Cronkite, and some hilarious clips about weed, a major alarm rings. The network's parent company, Paramount, has merged with Skydance Media, an entertainment juggernaut powered by billionaire Larry Ellison, best known as a huge Trump supporter. The company is now run by his son, David Ellison, and Trump himself is gushing about the great new owner at CBS, which, as Oliver points out, is about as comforting as a prescription from Dr. Frankenstein to soothe conservative concerns and root out bias. The new CBS overlords have installed not just a former right-wing think tank boss as ombudsman, but now, as of this week, Bari Weiss as editor-in-chief, a figure Oliver says we need to seriously scrutinize. If you don't recognize the name, John gives you the whole journey. Weiss's self-styled identity as a contrarian, a politically homeless liberal who vigorously disagrees with her own side, stacking up admirers who, somewhat ironically, range from Jeff Bezos to Amy Coney Barrett and Joe Rogan. And John is quick to note, being politically homeless didn't stop her from finding a very comfy couch in the heart of conservative America. He unpacks Weiss's rise to prominence at the New York Times, where she wasn't a reporter, but an opinion columnist hired, along with Bret Stephens, to bring in intellectual diversity, and voices the Times supposedly wouldn't consider. Oliver skewers that claim, reminding viewers that the Times was already printing op-eds from dictators like Muammar Gaddafi and Vladimir Putin, a clear signal that diverse and often controversial voices weren't anything new. As Weiss gained notoriety for columns about the left policing cultural appropriation and profiling the intellectual dark web, her tenure at the Times crescendoed in 2020 when an explosive op-ed by Senator Tom Cotton called for sending federal troops into American cities, a move that triggered fierce backlash within the newsroom. Weiss's tweets painting the staff's debate as a generational civil war were quickly disputed, unraveling her claim of objective reporting. She resigned with a grandiloquent letter decrying bullying and censorship, Jerry Maguire moment heard around the world, and then launched her own media venture, the Free Press, first as a Substack called Common Sense. Weiss pitched the project as honest news for sane people, with punk energy. Oliver jabs that it's hard to vibe as punk when your biggest fans are billionaires and you dress like a business hotel manager. The Free Press grew to 1.5 million readers, but only a tenth are paying subscribers, not really the kind of numbers that justify a $150 million buyout by CBS's corporate overlords. John surveys the content of the Free Press, where the overriding theme is, the left has gone too far, whether on issues of Israel, policing, diversity, or campus politics. It's not that criticism of the left is unwarranted, he says, but the publication often jumps to conclusions before the facts add up. And sometimes the fact-checking fails hard. John digs up chilling examples, like Jamie Reed's whistleblower article claiming a transgender clinic treated patients irresponsibly, which triggered investigations and a statewide ban on care for minors. But when other news outlets like the Sun, Louis Post, Dispatch, and NBC dug in, they found Reed's claims didn't match the experiences of dozens of families, and in one dramatic case, a mother went on TV calling the article's use of her daughter's medical story blatant exploitation. That story, John reveals, had enormous real-world consequences despite seemingly collapsing under its own scrutiny. Another Free Press article about crime in Austin under a progressive DA got shredded by local news, which presented actual crime numbers showing a decrease, not the crime wave, described by Weiss's team. And on the global scale, the Free Press's coverage of famine in Gaza questioned whether pictures of starving children were misused, claiming some kids featured were actually suffering from unrelated conditions. John rips apart the logic, showing how the publication ignored context that explained how the war and lack of food made pre-existing conditions far worse, and that their supposed simple journalistic method, looking things up on Google, was already standard practice in legitimate newsrooms. By now, Oliver isn't just questioning Weiss's qualifications. He's alarmed that someone with some little TV news experience and such a clear ideological bent is being handed the keys to CBS's editorial strategy. It feels, he says, like handing the steering wheel of a prized American institution to someone whose main claim to fame is stirring controversies and amplifying dubious stories, the kind that shape political narratives and policy. Even that isn't the whole picture. John goes further, looking at Bari Weiss's newest venture, founding her own university in Austin, Texas, supposedly untainted by woke ideology. The University of Austin doesn't have accreditation, operates out of an old department store, and sports a bust of Weiss funded by right-wing billionaires. Its major selling point, off-the-record classroom discussions, which Oliver jokes conveniently facilitate debating genuinely offensive topics, as shown by a zoomed-in image of a whiteboard listing, non-black people cannot use the N-word as a topic. Weiss herself advocates for ripping out DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion initiatives, root and branch, labeling them as undermining hard work, merit, and family. Oliver's ending drives home the stakes. Billionaires are buying up newsrooms coast to coast, shaping how Americans understand the world. CBS News, once synonymous with integrity, is now subject to the whims of a management team that prizes contrarian voices over hard journalism. John encourages viewers to watch carefully for changes at CBS, like resignations, firings, or a flood of stories focused on the left going too far. There's a warning here: when billionaires take over, the news you see might start to look very different. Not because journalists stopped caring, but because management began to care about something else entirely. And in classic Last Week Tonight style, the show closes with a silly montage dissecting a Taylor Swift song, reminding everyone that for all the big stories, there's always room for one last laugh. If you followed all that, you probably feel a little smarter and a bit more cynical about who controls your news feed. So, what do you think about the rise of opinion journalism and billionaire media takeovers? Have you noticed changes in news coverage on CBS or elsewhere? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's get a discussion going. And if you liked this breakdown, don't forget to hit that like button, share it with fellow news junkies, and subscribe for more recaps, deep dives, and the inside scoop on the stories that matter. See you next time.